We can call the meeting to order at 4:30. Roll call, Bob, want to start us?
Bacon present.
Big present.
Keyquam present.
Milky present.
Coin present.
Ours present.
Sweet present.
Being a quorum present, we'll continue on with item 3 of the agenda, approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Melky, support by Coin to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. The agenda is approved. Thank you. Item 5, correspondence. Anything there? Agenda item number 6, public comment.
I think we missed 4.
Approval of the
Oh.
minutes.
Nope, sorry about that. Okay, how are the minutes looking?
Good.
Good. Move to approve the minutes,
Support.
May 16th, 2023.
Got a motion by Sweet, support by Bars for approval of the May 16th meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And the meeting minutes are approved. Now, number 5, correspondence, which is nothing. And public comment. Seeing nobody in the galley. Anybody online? So let's move on to item 7, reports, accounts payable.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Let's start with the accounts payable for the East DDA. We had a payment to Consumers Energy for $429.39. And we also had a payment to Be Green Lawn Services for $981. This was for some growth regulator on Pickard Street and also later weed and feed on Pickard Street along the corridor there. And then we have a payment to MMI for maintenance and cleanup around the park benches for $603.75. That was for May. And then we have a payment to the Union Township Fire Fund for $79,658.26. We reconciled the tax settlement and everything, came through on that. And this is based on the agreement with the fire fund that the East DDA would pay back the captures for fire protection in the East. And then we have a payment to Yo and Yo for the audit presentation that they did last month here at your meeting. And that was for $425. So we have accounts payable in the total amount of $82,097.40. Are there any questions on that before I move to West DDA?
Why wouldn't you and you'll just bill that presentation into the whole fact price? It's just, I've never seen it before other than Township. Any other organization I've been involved, they generally build it into the price.
Oh,
It's just a question. Okay?
yeah, for us, it's always been separate.
Yeah, seen it before.
That's a lot of money for that.
Is there any mechanism for us to just like not be middleman on that fire department money?
Yeah.
Not really. Because the DDA's a tax increment financing plan, and so you have to capture. And then you've agreed to give it back with
Just asking
an
if there's any way
agreement,
of
yeah.
just stopping being the middleman, but if not, no.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
So can I get a motion for the 82,000?
I'll make a motion that we approve the expenses as presented.
Got a motion by Fig,
Support?
support by Bacon. All in favor of approving the East DDA payables, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And East DDA checking account payables are approved. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the West DDA, we just have two payments here for the West DDA. Again, it's paying the Union Township Fire Fund for fire services, $65,765.91. And then a payment to Yo and Yo for the audit presentation for the West DDA, $425. So we have a total accounts payable, $66,190.91.
Questions?
Make a motion that we approve the West DDA expenses as presented.
Motion by Fig,
Support.
support by Mr. Coyne to approve the West DDA payables. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And West DDA payables are approved. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to your financials for the East DDA, the 248 fund. You'll notice that in the revenue area that we've reconciled and the captures are now posted for the property tax line item there for the year. So your revenues come in at about 92% of the budget. Also, June 15th, we had a deadline to submit for the state aid revenue. That's for the lost personal property tax. That has been submitted by the deadline, so you should expect to see that money come in for the state aid revenue about in the November timeframe. And then in the expenditure area, all of the accounts payable that you approved are posted here in the expenditures lines. And right now, you know, it's only 7% of budget. And then moving on to the balance sheet for the East DDA. Just make note that there's about 2.3 million in total assets in the cash area, and your fund balance is right around that as well. Are there any questions on the East DDA financials? Our interest rates that we're receiving on the cash and the funds are much higher than they've been in past years, so you'll notice that interest earned is a lot higher. And we'll be doing a budget amendment for that. Okay, moving on to the financials for the West DDA. The same thing you'll see here in the revenue area. The tax captures are posted here in the amount of about $414,000. So your revenues are sitting at about 100% of budget. And we did submit for the West DDA, we also submitted for the lost personal property tax this year, and it looks like the West DDA is going to get about $1,800, which is more than was expected, so we'll have to budget for that. And then in the expenditure area, the expenditures are sitting at about 43% of budget. And cash in the fund, now that the tax captures have been posted, the assets are up to about 1.2 million, and your ending fund balance is projected to be, right now, sitting, not projected, but right now the ending fund balance is sitting at about a little under 1.2 million. Are there any questions on the West DDA financials? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry.
Hearing no further question, we'll let the record show the financials were presented, received, and filed. Item 7C, get the board member matrix expiration dates for your review. And moving on to agenda item number 8, new business. Item A, presentation of the 2022 annual synopsis of the East and West District activities. Required per Public Act 57 of 2018. Take it away.
Thank you. The annual report, annual synopsis of EDA board activities, that starts on page 15 of the packet. This is the report required by the state act that governs our DDA districts. The copy of this report's been posted on the website, which is the requirement of the state that we do that. And this is simply the information in this report follows what's required in the state act, providing the staff contacts, contracts that are active in the two districts, list of projects and accomplishments and events, and then plans for the future, essentially, is the format. It definitely was a busy year overall, as you can see. Some significant accomplishments, but obviously under contracts. On page 16, we have essentially the same group of folks that we've had for the last couple of years now, and we've had good service from each of these contractors in their area of expertise. I would note this year, and I express my appreciation very much for Dave Breedlove with Pleasant Time Bird Farm. He has done a great job of working around our construction and some of the challenges with getting our irrigation system up in the areas where it is available. And he's been doing excellent work to be able to keep the flowers available and visible in those areas where we're able to have them. And similarly, I'm grateful for Teal and Turf and their efforts with regards to our irrigation system, and maximizing what can be run during this year. Starting on page 17 of the report, or of the packet, we have the list of accomplishments. You'll note there the work that was done in the West EDA for South Lincoln Road and Broomfield Road. The paved shoulders, which have proved popular. If you've driven down there, almost every time I drive through, I see somebody walking or on a bike using that space. Just as, frankly, all the time when I drive by on Remus Road in the West EDA, I see people on sidewalks. Those are very popular, and I've already been asked questions a number of times, could we extend those sidewalks up the west side of Bradley Street to the middle school? So something to keep in mind. There's certainly an interest in it. The work on Yachts Drive to clean up that lot, demo that dilapidated building has been completed. We're currently looking at some options for putting that lot back into good use, and we'll be coming back to you with that hopefully shortly. I have some phone calls that are on my desk to make with regards to that. Some small things, but very popular. The crew car at the airport. Your support of that effort to establish that courtesy vehicle for flight crews has been greatly appreciated. That vehicle has been used dozens of times already this year. In fact, as part of my work, I serve as the chair of the Airport Joint Operations and Management Board, appointed by our Board of Trustees to do that. And actually, our board members had trouble getting to see the car, because whenever we're over there for a meeting, inevitably it's out. But it has proved very popular. That has an impact because it increases the likelihood of more traffic into the airport, because the flight crews know that they have the access to that free transportation. And really, all they need to do is make sure it has gas, and they're all very careful about filling it up and even donating to that project. So a small thing, but it's had big impacts. Of course, we know about the M20 work. We'll continue to work on that. I'll have a report a little later on that. And the grant program, of course, is up and going now. Our banner program, our reach is certainly up again, with a different format this year. Not quite as many banners, but nonetheless, they're very nice looking up on the East Pickard. So, of course, we have the various investments that you've made, page 18 and 19. And 19 also has some of the promotional events like the Outreach Program and the seasonal banners. We are looking at, for the seasonal banners, looking at replacing those for next year. If you drive by, you can see they're looking a little faded. It reached that time. The Convention Visitors Bureau has already contacted me about doing that for next year. They are budgeting for it, so we'll be looking at I expect we'll be looking at replacing those for next year. But this is a project that involved the city, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which really was the lead for it, and the Middle Michigan Development Corporation as well. So that would be that cost would be spread around. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the annual report. I will say one other note, something that you don't see, and that is the other reporting requirement that the State Act requires of us is a financial report. And this is an Excel spreadsheet that the State Treasurer's Office provides. And a tremendous amount of data needs to end up in this Excel spreadsheet. Sherry Teal takes on that responsibility every year and just completed it. That does not come to you. You actually see all the same data in your monthly reports, but all that gets put into the spreadsheet that goes to the state. And in fact, they actually make use of that data. We have received back a kind of a long-range financial planning tool where they took that spreadsheet data, both from the DDAs, but also from our other budgets, and actually preloaded it into the spreadsheet format, just to be able to make use for long-range planning. So this is something that our township manager has, and finance director have to look forward in that. So it's a lot of work, but it actually does get used both up here and also the state in their reviews.
Is there any forecasting that's being looked at, or reviews of any of the DDAs throughout the state, or that you know of, or has there been any reporting on how these changes in the legislature have impacted the DDAs in a way that's productive? I think that was their intention. Was a lot of reorganization, I imagine, that went on in the state of trying to get your DDA re-established.
Yeah. I don't know what's being done at the state level in terms of the financial data. All I know is that they do make use of it. I don't know the details of that. I do know our Michigan Downtowns Association, which is a private association for downtown managers and DDA districts. They are essentially laser focused on the exact issue you're talking about the future of these DDAs. There are some communities where it comes up every year really, where there are some communities that there are efforts to either eliminate a DDA or alter it in some way, or alter the capture to pull more money back into the general fund. It does happen, and there's part of what the Michigan Downtowns Association does is help put out information both that can be used by local governments, but also to our state legislators to essentially show why DDA districts are important, the services they provide, the public investments are done. So there's a lot of information that goes out that way, infographics and flyers and white papers and such that end up in the state legislature's hands. I will say, I'm not aware of anything going on in Lansing that would negatively affect DDAs right now.
That's good news, because it seemed like, well, not too long ago, there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Maybe 5, 6 years ago. It seems like this reorganization had something to do with it, the new legislative push to get DDAs into line supposedly, or online, or whatever their objectives. It seems like there would be a nice benefit to the DDAs if that was showing positive results for communities, not only here, which we think we can recognize pretty easily, but across the state, and maybe turn that into a different type of narrative than we've been hearing. The DDAs are really important and very productive.
And I will say that.
Which I heard you say.
Yeah, I think that the current state act and these reporting requirements, kind of standardizing reporting, I think have had a significant positive impact, because you can go from community to community and see what's going on in those DDAs, what impacts we're having. And other taxing jurisdictions, like in our case primarily the county, can take a look at what are they doing, with these funds that are being captured. And I think that opening it up, that additional transparency and that standardization of reporting, I think has had a big positive impact.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Any more questions, comments?
Just comment, it's nice to see a review. I mean, we deal with this throughout the year, and it's just nice to see it on paper all together. So
Yes.
thanks.
No, it's a
Yeah.
great report. This is my
Yeah.
go-to report I use for the next year this time. And public ask us what we're doing, it's like, oh, here we go.
I just happen to have one.
Yep.
And when the financial report goes to the state that Rodney was talking about, like all of the stuff that goes on that financial report, I mean, it's very nice to work on from my perspective, because I can report details of what you all are approving and doing, you know, what the money's being spent on, because we have always had really good financials with regard to details, like line item details. What I heard when they first came out with these reports that the state wanted submitted is that a lot of DDAs or TIF programs, they would just have a one line item, they'd put all their expenses into that one line item, and there would be no detail given. But this township has always been very good about reporting details. So it makes the report easier too, because, and then we're showing what are we doing,
Sure.
you know.
Oh, definitely
Good.
appreciate the report, and thank you for submitting it. So we're good.
Thank you.
So let's move on to item 8B. The bulk digitization. Want to walk us through that?
We spoke at a previous meeting about this project. Township, we budgeted for digitization of our historical files, building permits, all the minutes and other things like that, stored in the basement. And we were about to go out for a request for bids when we learned from the state of Michigan that they had a program already set and available for local governments through this company, Graphic Sciences, and the Office of Management Budget. So we worked with them on that process, and they currently were, the Board of Trustees has approved a similar request for our construction-related permits and files, so site plans and building plans and building permits. They were looking at essentially a 2 fiscal year process. So the general fund side, taking care of the building permits and construction plans this year, with the remainder coming up in 2024. For you, we have quite a few, what the contractor refers to as academic development files. These are all the files for the 2 DDA districts downstairs. We'd like to include those in what gets digitized this year. It would require a budget amendment, but there's value in go ahead and taking this action this year while we have them already active. The company has taken a couple of boxes from the construction side, and they're doing some testing. Essentially, they're scanning them and working with Amy Peak, actually, to finalize the formatting for file names and such like that, and also working with BSNA to look at how to automate uploading these into our permitting software and assessing database software for our records. So that part is going on right now. This proposal request before you today is, as you see, it is to do the work for the DDA files. It's a total just under $21,000 between the 2 districts. So we're inviting you to consider approving a budget amendment for $21,000 that would be split evenly between the 2 funds to digitize those files. When they digitize them, they will have them in a PDF format, but they will be available for search. The scanning process will include what's called OCR, optical character recognition. So it will recognize the text to the maximum extent possible. Make no guarantees if there are any cursive documents in there, but the typed documents, they should be able to recognize and scan for a particular word or phrase in the document, so it will make it easier to find what we're looking for. The files themselves will also have standardized names to the extent possible based on the subject matter. Like I said, all those will end up in digital format that we can put into our server, and where they're property related, we'll add them into our database as well at BSNA. So, we're pleased to recommend this to you for your consideration, and be happy to answer any questions.
Will that data have any, the public have access to some of that data, or any of it?
Well, this is actually one of the reasons to take this step. We do get FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests regularly, and we have a lot of digitized data. Anything new is digital and available that way. Anything in the last number of years, but inevitably the request either includes older data or maybe simply an older project. And so in that case, a manual search has to be done, go down box by box, checking titles and such to find the right box and to find the right file. This would make that data far more accessible. As I said, much of this would end up in our BSNA software. Right now, that software does not have an online component, but BSNA does have a cloud-based version of their software that could expand what might be publicly available or available with a sign-in, some kind of verification that this is your property. So there's various potential ways to expand that in the future. But simply having the data in digital format will make it far easier to access that data for requests that come up.
Existing paper records will be shredded, or are they going to hire an outside company to do that? Will staff do that?
Yeah. One of the questions we had was, do we have to retain the paper? And that was one of the things with working for the state, that their contractors is set to meet all the requirements for us to be able to make the digital copies the copy.
Yeah.
So the paper copies will not be coming back to the township, perhaps with a few exceptions. If there's a historical document.
So will they be shredded along as while they're being digitally processed, or will we have to hire
yes,
somebody to do that later?
They will take care of that their end, and yes, it'll all be shredded
Okay.
and then recycled.
That's not cheap.
No.
Get rid of the old stuff.
And you alluded to, I thought this was important when we looked at the building services aspect for this year. that the existing documents you're dealing with now are already being digitized. So this is just the historical, and everything moving forward then would be there. So if we choose to do irrigation, we'll hopefully have as-built, right?
Right.
In there.
Yes.
That was my question, what happens in the future after we get this done?
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
saying we'll just keep, nice.
Everything new is digital, and yes, we are supposed to have as-built when they're done for that project.
I just picked that as an example.
Yep.
Ron, all this information, is it gonna be stored on a disk somewhere, or how do they do it now?
Well, we will be provided based on a hard drive, a
Right.
solid-state drive. It will end up on our servers, so
Sure.
it's backed up and protected.
Did you have, there was a backup somewhere off-site then?
Yes, all of our township data is backed up and secured in a number of ways to make sure that in the event of one way going down, there's
Yeah,
backups.
okay, that was my concern.
Yeah. The backups are tested on a regular
Yeah.
basis too.
Yeah,
And all of our servers are now, our servers used to be on site, but the board of trustees approved a project to relocate our servers to the secure facility our contractor has. So they're far more secure, far more protected than they were even when they're here in your township facilities.
but if something ever happened to your contract, there's another source hit someplace.
There is, yeah, they have an offsite.
That's what I want.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, as I said, there's a number of backups that they short-term and long-term kind of set up several different backups to make sure that there's redundancy, that's what I was looking for. Yes.
Any more questions?
I'll just comment, $20,000 seems pretty cheap for,
Yeah.
I know it's labor-intensive process for that group.
Yep.
That would create enough space to probably pay for that square footage down there in the
To
basement.
rent out the street.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve fiscal year 2023 budget amendment to the amount of $21,000 to be split equally between the East DDA 248 fund and West DDA 250 fund for the bulk digitization of the historical DDA district records in accordance with the State Records Reproduction Act and applicable state standards for capturing digital images from paper records, and to authorize the township manager to enter into a service agreement with Graphic Sciences for this work.
Support.
Got a motion by Bars, support by Sweet. Hearing no more questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And the motion is approved. Thank you. And moving on to agenda item 8C, request for board action, pump station number 1, construction project participation agreement. What do we have there?
Right, well, this is the last step in a very, very, very long process. As noted from Kim Smith in the request, dates back all the way to 2018. Of course, this is the project to both upgrade and relocate the pump station number 1 over on Enterprise Drive. That project is underway now. It started earlier this year. Last year, we saw some equipment stored on the site. The contractor had challenges getting equipment, supply chain issues, but had it all available early this year, so he was able to get started. And so we've reached a point where the funds that you have budgeted year after year after year to contribute to this project are now ready. We're ready to make that transfer. So that's what this request is about. You have budgeted a total of $160,000 to support this project. The project, of course, noted in here is well over $1 million. The work is going to be of significant benefit because it does expand the sewer capacity in that area. Will hopefully reduce some challenges we had with limitations on the capacity of the existing station. The existing station, being pump station number 1, is one of the oldest. It has been rehabbed and worked on over the years, but it's definitely time to to make the move to bring it up to current. And so this is a excellent project for East DDA and for the businesses, especially in the Enterprise Park, Industrial Park. So what you have before you is a request to approve the participation agreement with the Charter Township Board of Trustees and a budget amendment, because in fact it did not get included in the fiscal 2023 budget. That was an oversight. So it's a budget amendment for the $160,000 and approval of the participation agreement to allow the transfer of those funds to pay for our part of that project that we've committed to. So with that, I have to answer any questions.
Two things. Just want to lift up, if you look at the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, 2% funding at $225,000. Just to note that the recent 2% distribution, the tribe committed, I just want to check my notes so I don't get it wrong. Where'd you go? I think it was $100,000 even, yes, $100,000 just recently appropriated to that. So the other additional $125,000 was from a previous 2%. And then, so I just want to say thank you to them publicly again. When the Board of Trustees approved some additional funds, which are shown here as well, the question was asked about completion of the project, estimation on that. And I thought Director Smith said that there was still a piece of equipment missing or having difficulty getting it, and they were thinking late summer, early fall. Is that?
I have not heard anything better than that.
Okay.
All I know is at this point, the project is intended to be completed this year.
Yeah, so I believe my memory is correct on that, because they were anticipating, I think, to have that already. There's one piece of equipment that may hold it up a little bit.
I will say the purchase of that lot, of course, purchased a lot there in that corner at Enterprise and M20 and took the existing building down that was there. That has proved to be very advantageous to keeping the cost down for the work, but also minimizing any impacts on neighboring properties. The Isabella Corporation has definitely made use of that entire lot and for the construction staging and equipment and all the details. So whereas if they hadn't had that, they would probably have been working in a very tight, limited area, one lane of Enterprise to try to complete that.
That's helpful.
Motion for the approval of the participation agreement with the Charter Township of Union Board of Trustees for the Pump Station Number 1 construction project and budget amendment to the fiscal year 2023 EDA budget in the amount of $160,000.00.
Support.
A motion by Sweet, support by Coin to approve this resolution. I just had a comment on this project, and I'm favorable on this 160 and on the total project, but it was a heck of a way to get here. I'm not real happy with Gordy Frazier, and it's like the initial design, it's almost like we had drawings that were not constructible. So it evolved that we then purchased the land, then it evolved through almost discovery, and maybe it's not anybody's fault, but it was through this rollout that when we bid it out, went over budget, then we finally got it going, and then what was designed really wasn't constructible. That's when we pursued the lot. So this thing's been going on for years, and it was just a heck of a way to get where we're at. So I'm glad we're doing it, glad we're concluding it, but it was just not exactly a good program to march down the way this rolled out.
I'd like to follow up on that as well, because in my thinking, it's cost the DDA, East DDA, quite a bit of money because of these delays, which might not have had anything to do with us or the DDA, I know there was a lot of circumstances, and that was during COVID. And, I just don't know if there's any value in trying to assess the situation and find out maybe where there was a couple of hiccups that could have be addressed
The next,
the next time around.
in the next major project we hire Gordy Frazier for, I would always like to interview him and maybe quiz him a little bit about this. You know, so your plan set at 100%, this is gonna be constructible. So we're not kicking this thing down the road and redesigning it and buying land, and it just, like I said, it wasn't really a normal program, I guess I'll say, but that's enough said.
If I can add a little bit of context.
Sure.
Of course, this started before I came on board. I came on board in 2020, just before COVID. This was already planned, there was already a project, it hadn't been executed yet. The project the original design was designed to work within the easement that they had. And the project was designed to replace the existing station with the new station within that very tight space that they had to work with. The existing station was in the middle of this lot, kind of cheated towards the Enterprise Drive right of way, but really right in the middle of the lot, had a little area on the east side and basically a little right of way on the west side, but dead in the middle. But it was a very limited space, and the easement allowed access to that, allowed across the Enterprise Drive frontage to get to that easement area, but it was a very narrow space. The equipment and the sewer force main themselves are very deep at that location. So it was an expensive design to work within that existing easement, because that was the original plan. The property, I don't know if it was occupied, the building was occupied at that time, but it had been occupied not long before that. So there was not an option necessarily to buy it unless we were willing to go through eminent domain to buy it. When I came on board and learned about the project, one of the questions I had was, while we're doing this, can we move this station? Can we work with the owner to move the station to the south end of the lot, where more of this property would be functional? It could be put to some use. So that led to, I think one of the elements of delay was, well, we can look at that. And then about that time was when the property became available to purchase. And that was a surprise, because as I understand it, that had not been something that was an option before.
It was never listed with a realtor, though.
Right, not that I'm aware of.
I have problems with that.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it became available. And that's what then, looking at how do we really do this, and what, because as I said, the pipe is deep, and that meant a very expensive construction process to try to limit impacts on Enterprise Drive and limit work within the limited area that they had. So that is really what led to the changes that ultimately came about in this design. Is that, some of it I can't really speak to what was going on in 2018 and 2019, but I do know that was the original plan, was to work within the existing easement,
Yeah,
because that's what
it's
we
like-
have.
We improved upon the condition we were given. That was a good idea, picking up that parcel of land. Because I distinctly remember, just like you said, that is just an incredible hole. And anybody who's in construction, my OSHA, when you're going so deep, you gotta have a slope so much, or some giant shoring. And when Zalet started it, it was just, he couldn't do it. And that's when we had to go back to redesign. That's about time you came on and started saying, hey, well, let's make lemonade out of lemons here. And we did, and it's been quite a journey, but we're here now, so. So with that being said, any more comments or questions? And we do have a motion on the floor by Sweet, supported by, who was that? Coin. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. And a motion carried. Thank you. And let's move on to item D. The bids to prep and repaint the streetlight poles.
Thank Thank you. You have a memo dated June 9th. This, as you know, more than half of our street lights are currently disassembled in storage. While they were there, we looked at, is there an option to repaint them? These fixtures have been up since 2008, 2009, somewhere in there, I think. They're in a very harsh environment, salt and grit and weather and such. The fixtures are cast iron. They were powder coat painted originally at the factory, which is really the best surface for this type of unit. It's a heat bonding process that it really does last, and largely the bulk of the fixtures are still in good shape. Areas down near the ground level, primarily, some of them are worn more than others. Fixtures that are closer to the road right of way tend to be more worn than ones that are further away. It's not a situation where they were concerned about them immediately rusting under code, but there's some wear. And so we wanted to look at if it was possible, while they were down, to have them powder coated again, so that durable surface would continue. So staff, we put together a request for bids. We did the research and identified a half dozen, I think 7 firms, if I recall, in the region that did that type of work potentially, and sent them sent out the invitation to bid. We did receive back a number of bids. Are listed in the memo. The bids themselves are only 2 of them really were fully responsive to what we asked for. Some of them had other options, like Blastec and what referred to as the J-Rank Electric bid. They're partnering with another firm, suggesting the J-Rank Electric's case, suggesting simply paint them when they're put back in place. That would not be a powder coating process; it would just be a standard paint process. So there are 5 bids from 3 companies, and as really only 2 of them were for the powder coating. You can see from there those 2 powder coating bids are very different in their numbers. The scope is relatively similar. Even there's some variation. It made it a challenge to even compare, really, and contrast between them. What we found through this process and through talking to the contractors, when we had a pre-bid meeting and met with the contractors on site, and they could view the units in the shipping containers, what we found was essentially that the powder coating may be even more of a challenge than we thought. I think the Superior bid actually reflects truly what it will cost to do this work. Nothing against the J-Rank bid. They have the benefit that fixtures are on their site, so their transportation costs are less. But for example, the fixture heads, most of the fixtures are disassembled right now, at least partially. But the fixture heads are still intact, with all the electronic elements in them. All those electronic elements will have to be removed completely in order to be able to powder coat the head itself, and then put it back together. In talking with the contract, J-Rank Electric, and also talking with Superior, representative from Superior, there was significant concern about not being able to get those put back together. They are older units, things break, and so there may be some significant additional potential costs that are not reflected in these bids that will come back on us. Out of all of that, what we decided to bring forth to you, share with you the bid, share with you the information, what we've done. We've not made a recommendation on moving forward with any of these bids. What we've included here are basically 3 options that you find under the evaluation. One of them is to consider the two powder coat bids. We could move forward with that. It would require a budget amendment, because that was not part of our 2023 budget. And then approval, obviously, of the preferred contractor. The other options are to really do nothing. Number 1 is essentially to do nothing, to simply we'll thank the contractors for putting the bids together, but not choose anybody, and allow the fixtures to be put back as they are. As I said, they're not unsafe, it's not a case that if we put them back, they're going to be damaged or rust or anything like that. It's just the surface is worn. And then number two really is kind of related to that, is look at exploring a process after all the road construction is done, so that we're not dealing with the dust and such, to perhaps have the fixtures painted in place. While powder coating is the best option and will have the longest lasting surface, there are very good paint surfaces and painting techniques that could be employed to upgrade the fixtures and still give us a decent lifespan in their location. So we share with you the information with you. As I said, we're not recommending that we move forward at this point. My suggestion is we simply thank the contractors for submitting the bids, but based on the information provided, we recommend we hold off on the project and look at this again once all the road construction is done.
Is there an estimate on the duration of the life of the pole after it's been powder coated versus painted?
Well, I think, there's some information in the bids about that, but,
Information.
what's that?
A lot of information.
Yes, a lot of information.
Much.
But we, just from our example, fixtures that were put up, as I said, 2008, 2009, and we're looking today at they're now showing some wear, to the point where that there's value in looking at having them repainted. That's a very significant period of time for any cast iron object painted that's out in the weather and in those harsh conditions.
I was part of it. Was there a problem with Blast Tech with getting the poles moved to their thing or something? Was that part of what I caught?
Well, there is a challenge.
Challenge with Blast Tech's process?
Well, there's a challenge really with moving these fixtures with any of the contractors.
With any of them,
Again,
okay.
J. Rank has the benefit that they have custody of the fixtures right now,
Yeah,
and so
okay.
they're sort of in a preferable position internally for them, price wise and
Yeah.
other, because they own everything. They have it right now. They own they rent the shipping containers, but they have control over it all. The issue is really that the shipping containers loaded are too heavy for anything other than a crane to move them. You could lift them up and put them on some kind of a large semi-truck flatbed. So in all likelihood, what would end up happening is they would have to unload that equipment, those fixtures, reload it onto transportation, take care of the
But in order to
process.
use anybody but other than J. Rank, we're gonna have to do that.
Well, even J. Rank is good. They're not doing it on site, so even they are going to have to move it. They just
Okay.
have the benefit. The fixtures are there already. They have the easiest access to them. I think that's somewhat reflected in their cost structure. But for the value of the powder coating, as I said, it's a long-lasting process. I think it is the best option, but we just don't have the bids really that we can compare and contrast. There's not really that benefit, and I don't think that I don't think there's value in jumping on one of these bids right now. I don't think it's necessarily warranted. I really would rather have several bids that are actually comparable before we move forward with something of that.
Ron, were they powder coated initially?
They were at the factory when they were created. They were powder.
So then after 15 years, that's already shown where the powder coated, so.
My initial thinking that we should pursue this fast and furiously is when the poles are down, disassembled, it's gonna be the absolute cheapest time to do it all. Whereas if they go back up,
If we go back up, we're
then we're
probably
gonna
not
pay
do anything.
again to take them apart and down and paint it and then
We're
put
probably not
back
gonna
up
do
and
anything.
down.
We don't
Well,
need it.
they can be painted in place, just not powder coated.
Right.
So there are very durable paints today. I mean, I don't know the details of paint specifically for the cast iron, but I've dealt with Sherwin-Williams Super Paint, for example, for painting siding that has a very long lifespan, and it's designed for these kinds of harsh environments. I'm sure that there's an ability to have a durable surface painted in place. It's just, like I said, that was not considered because that's not really the project we were looking at. Looking at while they're down, could we do something? And that's what we explored. But I don't think the value is there right now, but simply because we don't really have competitive bids. They're even between Superior and J. Rankin, they're not entirely comparable in terms of what they're proposing to do. And so my suggestion is at this point is we let the fixtures be returned and that we look at exploring repainting them in place after the road construction is done.
Because I'm assuming these costs, once they tear them apart, sandblast, try to get the electrical components back in, oh, this is broken, that's an additional, these costs could go up exponentially, even the 157, and we just approved 171 last month for the foundations. I mean, I'm gonna have 250 to 300,000 bucks into
I
lights.
think Tom's point, I was gonna make a similar comment in that if we were really set on powder coating these, now would be the time to do that.
Now would be the time, but I'm
Now would
just
be the
wondering
time, but
the-
if you look at just the paint poles in place, you
have
can
to
do
do
that
that
6
every 10
times. You can do
years,
that,
yeah.
you can
Right.
do that 6 times for the cost of the powder coating.
Right.
And not have the issue that you were just talking about, which is,
Yeah.
do we get it all back together and?
Right.
I agree with you to a point, and the point that I disagree is, and I don't know this, but I will raise the question, because Rodney has already said that there's been some tarnish.
Oh, no, it's,
The cast iron,
the cast iron is protected still, it's just, there's wear. But no, there's no exposed cast iron, this is where an undercoat might be visible, but there's.
The wear you're talking is
We
just
don't have rust in
cosmetic wear.
Right.
There's
What-
no
exactly.
what I'm
structure.
wondering about is, what is the lifespan of a paint job, and when would you expect to be back in there to try and maintain, just so that you, because once these go back up, we're not, the option of powder coating is off the table.
Well, I think actually what was brought up about the fact that the J-Rank proposal to paint in place is, if we could literally do it 6 times for the same amount of money that the powder coating bid is. I think
That might be an understatement too, because they're the contractor, and there's really nothing to compare it to, like you were talking about. What if another painting company is gonna say that's a
Well, that's what he's trying to
$35,000
say, is
job
that we're gonna
before-
have a better competitive bid process when we can open it up to non-electrical contractors.
Right, but you've eliminated the possibility of a powder coating.
Right, but
So
I
you-
don't-
We understand that, Marty, but if we put them back
think
in
that's what the
place,
debate is
can
about,
can I,
I
Can
think
I-
that's what the
can I
debate is
talk?
about.
Just can I talk, and then we'll
But
go
I think
forward.
that's what we're debating, is whether we're gonna go up with them or leave them in, storage to be done. Isn't that what we're talking about? Whether we decide to do it or not do it.
All right, go ahead, Jeff.
You tell me, you interrupted me. I
Well,
was
you
trying to
interrupted
get to
me
that
first
point,
If you wanna
Marty.
get detailed about it,
No,
I
I
don't wanna
didn't.
go that route. So you do, but I don't. Anyway,
Can I add something, Jeff, unless you want?
No, I'm good.
No, I get this feeling when we talk about powder coating, and then we talk about the complications, if this happens, you're gonna come back in, and we get it all done, and then you're gonna come back and say, we gotta replace all those light heads, or some of them, because everything's screwed up, and there's another $100,000, whatever it costs for those things. And the way I look at it is, if you wanna go back and put it up for bid for just painting or whatever, it probably makes more sense to me. I don't know.
As you said, going through this process, and that's why we brought it to you this way. I mean, we certainly prefer to come to you and say, we recommend this, here's what we've done, and we recommend X. That's not really what happened here. We want to just give you the information we gained through the process. But it is really the case, as we explored this and as we went through the process, it became clear that the powder coating may not be the best option. We want to give you the options so you can look at it, but for the reasons that have been discussed tonight, it looks like there may be better options. Simply, even if paint doesn't last as long, it would be more cost effective in the long run to do something else.
Sorry, I assume too, in the case of the powder coat, both of those described a sandblast, so they're taking it down to the iron and putting a new finish on it. In the case of the paint poles in place, where we're using a different painting process, that they are priming that for the paint, but they're not sandblasting it down to the metal.
No.
And so you have the added benefit of the powder coat still underneath as well. I mean, it's just additional protection.
And I have some work in this, and not to interrupt, but if you read Blast Tech on page 47, they even stated that maybe powder coating isn't the best, but the paint in place, because, and it tells you the thicknesses of the paint, 2 mil and 3 mil. So there's some really good information from Blast Tech on page 47.
I guess what I was talking about, and trying to get on a debate stage with Jeff, is that we're looking at a price from the contractor that's doing the work. And my point is, what is the cost of that paint job by somebody that's not a contractor on the work? Is it gonna be a surprise to the 18,000, because I keep hearing that brought up as a rationale for not doing any part of it? Because what if the paint job's a $25,000, $30,000 job from an average contractor, and you say, well, Jay Rank, we could give you that because we were doing a project.
Well,
That's what I'd like to ask, is that the cost of what it would be for anybody else coming in to do it?
The key thing here is the road construction. Right now, we would not want them to be painting them in place. Just like for example, one thing keep in mind, even with the powder coating, it's about, whatever it is, 60% of the fixtures would be done. The other 40% are not being done because they're still up and they're not affected by the construction. The issue is basically that with the painting in place is, with the road construction, is dust. We really can't do it right now because of the dust. And even next year, when they're working the city, we potentially could have the dust. If the prevailing winds from the west are going to be putting that dust into these fixtures in the township. So it's something where, in terms of looking at painting in place, we really need to wait until 2025 anyway. Even though they've given bids here, 18,000, whatever it might be later, we really can't look at that right now because we have a practical limitation that we should not be painting those fixtures right now.
But because of time and transportation problems, it's hard to get them painted someplace else too. So we almost have to just go ahead with, at this point, not doing much.
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to powder coat them after all this is done, right, they would be simply taken down one by one and removed,
Yeah.
work done and brought back. And so it probably would be literally one by one by one by one in that case. Yes, it would be a significant cost no matter what if they're
Yeah.
removing them and transporting them.
Yeah.
So my suggestion today is that we simply, as I said, we thank the contractors, and if we agree, we'll do that, but not take any action on any of the bids today.
I think from everything I've heard, I agree with the recommendation you gave. Obviously, powder coating would have been nice, but seeing the cost and the difficulties, unknowns.
Yeah, we're still, the components, they're LEDs, so there's gonna be these mini transformers inside of them, and it's like, we don't have like a full picture. It's not just painting, it's disassembly and putting it back together, and then,
It's gonna be the pump station.
yeah.
Right? You're gonna open it up and you don't know what's inside.
Have to buy the land they sit on.
So you're thinking more investigation and,
My thought would be is that we look at something where we'll include something in our fiscal year 2024 budget. Or plan for it in 2024 for the fiscal 25 budget to actually do the work.
So you think the best recommendation at this point would be just to move ahead with the project, the road project, put the lights back in place when it's time, and then go forward from that point?
That's
And
correct.
seeing what we want to do then?
Yeah.
So which would take the light issue off the table, they'd just be going up as part of the road construction project.
Exactly, yeah. It would not require any other action from you tonight.
did you get it?
So you don't need a motion to have no motion.
Well,
You
So
need
what'd
a
you bring it
motion
up
to
for?
make that-
I mean, a motion to take no action is still a motion.
I move to reject all the current bids and to do nothing at this time with streetlight painting or powder coating.
I second that.
One quick question regarding the lights that are still up. Has anybody inspected those for the type of wear that we saw on some of the other ones? Do we have a status on the ones that are still erect?
Actually, one of the things we're going to be doing is having Black Electric look at the foundations. We talked about some of the units having significant rust on the mounting brackets, and so we'll be doing that. They have not started that. We have.
Okay, but the plan is to, at least because of what we saw with the ones that were taken down, that
We are going to
let's
be looking
evaluate
at
those. Okay, thank
Part
you.
of the reason we haven't yet is because some of them are still in the immediate area of construction.
Got it.
Kind of let that move forward, and then we'll bring that work in. Because they'll, in all likelihood, have to block a lane of traffic to even do that in that inspection.
Thank you.
I almost want to say we almost need like an engineer, electrical engineer, to kind of do a engineered condition assessment. And maybe we can get some free engineering assistance out of MDOT, their electrical.
Or possibly J Rank. since they're-
Or J-Rank, which
J-Rank?
could, yeah, but they could be partial too, because you know.
That's true, but I mean, just from a standpoint of, they know what the situation is.
Yeah, but that's what I'm assuming you're gonna do, right? Talk.
So J-Rank is going to actually be doing some work on our fixtures. They did remove the wiring from the posts as part of this, and they're actually putting new wiring through the posts. And of course, they're putting new wiring underground, part of which we're paying for, part of MDOT's paying for on the north side. So some elements of this, the fixtures are being rehabilitated. They're not doing anything to the fixture heads, of course, but the internal wiring within the poles are being
Which was in
replaced.
disrepair, as I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, there was concern about that. Some of the wiring was not where it was supposed to be.
Didn't even have coating on it, some of it.
What?
So all that wiring will be new, and of course, all the underground wiring will be new through the system within that project area. So it certainly is a significant benefit. It's a bear to deal with right now, but it's going to be a benefit once it's all done.
So we have a motion on the floor by Sweet to do in the resolution number 1, is that what you said?
Yes.
Jeff? Is there support?
Support.
Support by Fig. All in favor of the motion to do the number 1, reject the current bids and do nothing at this time with the streetlights, painting, or powder coating? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. And the motion is approved. And moving on to agenda item number 9, pending business. Anything there? Item 10, director comments. Update on irrigation along Pickard Road corridor.
Yeah, I have several things. We'll start with that one. Randy was not able to be here today, but he did give us some updates. I think when he was here, he was talking about their distributor, Spartan, that provides the products for them. And he did confirm that Spartan would be willing to do the work to create a plan for the new irrigation system. That if they were the supplier, that plan would not cost us anything. You know how that works. So if we are willing, and we've talked about this before, if our plan is to stick with our current installer, that is Teal and Turf, then they would be working with Spartan, that's their supplier. And in that case, then Spartan, if we move forward, would be willing, as I said, to do the planning work and to provide the updated system. And obviously from that, we would have get cost estimates and such that we can consider. This would not be a case of taking this out for bid. We'd be working with our existing contractor to put that system back. So that's something just as to be thinking about. I know that essentially your direction previously was to work with Teal and Turf, and we're happy to do that. So that's where they are coming from, and we will schedule him when he's available to come back in and move this project forward. Any questions about that at this point?
it's not a question about that, but I remember, before you go, I remember Commissioner Zalid bringing up, and I don't want to jump the gun if anybody wanted to talk about that more, but I just wanted to ask you about the idea that Commissioner Zalid brought up last meeting about the trees, and you said something about a grant and replacing some of the trees that had been taken down during
Yeah.
this and other times.
Yeah, yeah.
Have we looked into that?
We have, yeah. Consumers Energy, of course, consumers, like all the electrical utilities, does a lot of tree trimming and cutting. And to compensate a bit for that, they provide grant money to local governments for tree planting. And every year, about this time actually, is when that grant process is going on right now. And we did look at it for this year, but we really just didn't have sites that were ready for that, other than perhaps in McDonald Park. We decided that we weren't going forward with it this year. But it is exactly, the M20 corridor is exactly what they would like to have happen. They really are looking for road corridors for the tree plantings. And so, yes, for next year, we'd be looking at potentially applying for one of those consumers' energy grants to help fund some replacement trees along that corridor where they may be needed.
Thank you.
Well, a couple of additional items. Talking about M20, just can report, got word today that Isabella Road, the leg south of M20, is going to be closed there at the intersection. M20 and Isabella, so basically you can't turn southbound. That will happen on Friday, and it will be a 2-day closure, so Friday and Saturday of this week. That is to put in the new storm drain that's going through there. Yeah, on the south, on the eastbound lane, basically, of that is where that's going. And they've been, you've seen the big concrete pipes going in. They're going through the intersection on Friday and Saturday. So be aware of it. They say Broadway's the alternate route, which I'm sure if there's a lot of folks around, you can walk faster than you can drive it. Certainly 5 o'clock, that's the case. So, but it'll be closed on Friday and Saturday. Unfortunately, Mr. Coyne is not here at the moment. Mr. Coyne had brought to my attention a concern that had been raised to him about our conduit that's going in. We talked about part of MDOT's work is they're putting in conduit for our underground irrigation and also for the streetlight wiring underneath driveways and underneath the side streets. And he was approached by folks along the corridor there that's watching the project, and they had a concern that this conduit was going in too deep to be useful. And the suggestion was it was 4 or 5 feet deep or more below the intended surface. So I did contact the MDOT project manager, and to his credit, very quickly he got back to me. He contacted their surveyors, and surveyors went out and verified that the work is going in correctly. These conduits are going to be 2.5 feet below the surface, which is exactly where the plan proposed and exactly where the old plans had them. So they are going in correctly. I'll let Mr. Coyne know that. I just found that out this afternoon. So that is all I have for today.
Hey, we have a lot between Country Square Estates and my house that's gonna have a sidewalk put through it.
Yes, yeah, it's,
Hey, can we get the snow fence removed? I can start riding my bicycle through that lot.
I want to keep you off until we have a sidewalk. Yes,
Hey, I got a cross-country bike. I can ride through the grass. There's no hazard.
we had trucks going through there, so that's why the snow fence is there, because we had pickup trucks.
Yeah, well, I
going
mean, it was a hazard, but now it's not.
Yeah, so, yes, the lot 5243 Jonathan Lane, in Country Square Estates between Jonathan Lane and
I can ride
Third
this
Street.
butcher shop.
Yep, we are going to be doing a sidewalk. That's a general fund project, although it's in our East EDA. This was actually funded as part of the same work that's going on starting this Friday, right here in McDonald Park, with our fitness court project, which is starting hopefully Friday. That's when it's scheduled for the paving of the fitness court, and then they'll be running sidewalks from McDonald Park around the front of the hall here. That same project includes the Jonathan Lane sidewalk between the two streets.
Oh.
And as part of that project, there'll be a different fence, a decorative fence that will not block access, but keep cars out anyway. That'll be on the K Street side of that. And I think going forward, one of the things that we'll be talking with you about is the idea of doing some other virtual park improvements, to actually make that a neighborhood park there. So anyway, but yes, the sidewalk will be going in later this summer. Timing on that, right now I have the fitness court scheduled. The rest of it, I haven't heard the exact timing on that yet, but it'll be this summer.
You know, Rod, this is just a curiosity question, that crystal station, or whether it's that C-store thing on the corner of Isabella and on Pickard, what's the holdup on that? Is that because they're doing all this work, or?
I don't know. I know they have a building permit, and they did bury the tanks in place. It perhaps may be the M20 project. They were fully aware of it. We made them aware from the time they applied that it was coming. It does appear that MDOT's using some of that property, so there may have been an agreement, perhaps to make that possible. But anyway, I know they are absolutely planning to move ahead.
No new bandit updates since last month? Kind of updated us last month.
Yeah.
Nothing new on that.
Nothing new on that. I will say that they are definitely moving ahead with ramping up employee hiring. They do have plans for additional projects over there, so we'll be seeing more, but I don't have any.
Yes, nothing new.
For another 100 employees right now.
It just keeps going up. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a huge addition to the community, and it has proved to be very useful, very beneficial for them. I will say that I did mention to them our lot, the pump station lot. I said, it's right next to yours. I said, it's own business. Do you need a showroom for your equipment? And they said, we've been thinking about that. So we'll see on that one. I'm waiting. I'll be talking to them again about it, but they certainly perked up when I suggested the idea of putting a display there. They have a really gorgeous display of their equipment. They light it up, the whole thing, make it nice inside the building, glass fronts, whatever. Make quite a nice addition to that corridor.
Would be about the best use.
That would be
Yeah.
interesting.
That would be about the
That's
best use.
cool.
I was wondering, MDOT TSC, they know they're closing South Isabella down the same time we had James Taylor concert that afternoon, that evening.
James Taylor got moved.
Yeah, and then it just got canceled. They got laryngitis today. So tell MDOT they dodged the bullet.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was concerned you didn't know that, because I just found that out about 2 hours ago, because one of our staff had tickets.
Doctor's orders, they were rescheduled on August 26th, Saturday. So all the tickets still work. Everything's good.
I don't know that MDOT knew that. I suspect they probably had no idea.
Because in some of the planning meetings, I think RPR gave them our summer schedule.
I do know that they are on a very tight schedule to get this done. November 15th is their hard deadline. We've got to get it in before that. For obvious reasons related to their staff,
Oh, yeah,
and also for weather conditions.
Yep,
And I know that every moment is planned to be able to make that possible.
I have 17 trucks on the tap.
Anything else?
I don't know if they're gonna fit them all there, but.
Hearing nothing, we'll call the meeting adjourned, 5:49. Next meeting is Tuesday, July 18th, with the informational meeting Tuesday, July 25th.
Bass fishing?
No.
Good, thanks.
Visiting